Welcome to the Israel Guys in the Land of Israel Network, where in a world of Jew hatred and anti-Israel propaganda, you need to be connected to what's happening in the land of Israel. Guys, good to be back with you. Unfortunately, Joshua Waller not here today, but I am with Rabbi Ari Abramowitz, Rabbi Jeremy Gimpel. Good to have you guys with us. Guys, make sure you subscribe and follow along. We so much happening. It's always so difficult to know what to talk about first. Obviously, this week marks 600 days since October 7th. I don't know of any other situation in the world where someone has been held hostage, at least in modern times, for this long.
To me, it also contrasts. We just celebrated Jerusalem Day, the 6-day war, and now we're at a 600-day war. And it's like in 6 days, we won the Golan Heights, the Gaza Strip, Judea, Samaria. We defeated armies from multiple countries. And now 600 days, we're still dealing with the Hamas in Gaza.
Yeah, and also when you said where people have been held hostage, my first impulse was, oh, you're talking about us. You're talking about the entire nation of Israel. Because on some level, we all feel hostage. That's the reason I think the world looks at us and like, they're so desperate for their hostages that they'll trade thousands of terrorists with blood on their hands for even bodies of their hostages. There's an interconnection of the nation of Israel that is so deep and transcendent of theology and ideology that I think ultimately will shine a light to the world, because on the deepest level, all of mankind really is connected in such a way. But we've all been held hostage for 600 days while our people are there in Gaza.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right. And just leading into that, there was Raylan Givens on X or Twitter had a great quote for a video that I want to play in a second. But he said, speaking about Steve Witkoff, who was like Trump's envoy to the Middle East, basically. He said, quote, "Hamas is falling apart and about to end, and Witkoff is here about to save them." Unbelievable. I want to just play this short clip because I think it's very significant.
I think that we are on the precipice of sending out a new term sheet that hopefully will be delivered later on today. The president is going to review it, and I have some very good feelings about getting to a long-term resolution, temporary ceasefire, and a long-term resolution, a peaceful resolution of that conflict.
So I don't know about you guys, but to me, it literally sounds like he's negotiating a business deal. Number one. Number two, every time a news headline comes out about a potential hostage deal, and by the way, I think the world and Israel is sick of hearing of hostage deals and ceasefires and stuff like this, because it is true, Hamas is almost finished, and Israel's so close to victory as long as it has seemed like it's been. And every time a potential hostage deal comes out, it's always certain number of alive hostages get released, certain number of dead bodies get released, in exchange for disproportionate number of terrorists being released from Israel and permanent withdrawal of the IDF from Gaza, 70-day ceasefire. So it's just when Israel could be so close to victory, Hamas could be so close to being finished, and yet the world, Witkoff and the world is determined to basically save Hamas, and that's why I liked this headline.
I am allergic to that video. I watch it and I get a little bit nauseous. The term sheets are being sent, a very good feeling about a temporary ceasefire. We are dealing with manifest evil on earth. We need to just wipe them out. And we're so close right now. They're losing control of the people in Gaza. They're losing control of the humanitarian aid. There are riots where people are breaking into their warehouses. They've lost total control. We've eliminated almost all of their leadership. And now we're going to settle for a term sheet with a temporary ceasefire with manifest evil. Like, it's like a businessman trying to do a deal with the devil. How can we be even talking to these people? We just need to destroy them.
Yeah, it's like negotiating, bargaining with a pyromaniac as they're pouring kerosene on your house. It's like when you understand the underlying motivations of who you're dealing with, then any negotiations are just tactical. They're just strategic in order to determine how to uproot and destroy you. So why even enter into negotiations? The whole thing, number one, I think that I have an issue with your initial framing. You said Hamas is almost finished. I don't know why you say that, why you say Hamas is almost finished. To me, it's like saying, Hamas, what about Hezbollah, and what about ISIS, and what about the Islamic Jihad, and what about Abu Sayyaf?
And what about the Gazans themselves?
True.
Right. Well, okay,
Yeah,
but let's just talk about organizationally right now. To extricate Hamas and try to isolate them as if they're their own little militia and not just part of the global jihad with this is just their team name, but they're just all on the same deal. Why are we isolating them like that? There's a much bigger thing happening here. And so I think some people are, I've heard people on the left, liberals, that, Hamas is an idea. And they're saying it like in an inspirational way, but there's some truth to that. Thinking that we're going to just be able to kill all of them, it's whack-a-mole. What we really need to do is uproot the jihad, the very concept of the jihad. And then that would save so many lives. It would save Gazan lives. It would save Jewish lives. It would save everybody's lives.
But what does that mean to uproot the jihad? What does that look like?
What that means is that there's certain foundational premises that the jihad is founded upon. What do they say before they commit every terrorist attack? Allah Akbar. What does that mean? People say Allah is great. That's not what it means. Kabire is great. Akbar means the greatest. The greatest, meaning that the fundamental tenet of Islam is global domination and the domination of their Allah over everybody else, which is why they'll go into India and knock down these Buddhist shrines and temples and then build a massive mosque right next to it, on top of it, towering over it, because that is the victory of Allah over them. The more we defeat the underlying theology and ideology, the more Hamas and all of them will crumble. Well, and that's what we really need to go for. We need to cut the head off the snake.
Can I add to that too? I think you're 100% right. I think jihad has been exported to the world. And speaking of that, now it's being exported to the United States. I want to talk about that in a minute. But I think a big part of Israel crushing Hamas is the flip side. Israel acting as a sovereign nation and doing what they need to do without basing their decisions on Hamas, the Palestinian Arabs in Judea and Samaria, the Gaza Strip. This week, Israel announced, the finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, and Israel Katz, the defense minister, announced 22 new Jewish communities in Judea and Samaria. That's an amazing step. They're also reestablishing 2 of the Jewish communities that were evacuated and torn down along with the Gaza Gush Katif, the withdrawal from Gaza in 2005. That's another step and I think every time Israel does that, I think Israel has announced they're taking over 75% of the Gaza Strip this week. Israel just needs to part of defeating jihad in Israel is for Israel to say, we don't really care what you guys think because you're our enemies. We're going to be a sovereign nation. We're going to build where we need to build. We're going to build in the Gaza Strip. We're going to move Jews in there. We're going to apply sovereignty to Judea and Samaria and Jerusalem because this is our sovereign nation. And when Israel starts acting fully like a sovereign nation, then on some level they don't have to. They can stop worrying about all these factions.
That is part of the purpose of the jihad. That is, on the divine spectrum, I believe that's the reason that this is all happening to us, to get us to say, we are going to be truly sovereign, meaning we're constantly saying, everyone's like, Israel doesn't know how to do the advocacy thing correct. We're not doing it right. We should be pitching it like this. Our PR campaign should be like this. We should paint them like this and do like this. The real PR campaign is no PR at all. We don't need to, if we need everybody's permission to declare sovereignty, then it's not real sovereignty.
Right.
Part of real, true independence, they're leading us to that. They're bringing that out from within us. And so, number one, I think that, on the way here, Jeremy and I constantly, when we're driving up here, we're like, just the absurdity of the accusations against Israel. It is not just lies, but it's the inversion of truth. The Tur Musaya right here on the way here, on the way up. Mansions. Mansions like I've never seen anywhere.
Not in Beverly Hills. They don't have such mansions.
Oh, yeah. I've been inside that village. These mansions are ridiculous.
Ridiculous. Show me one Jew in all of Israel that has a house the size of those mansions.
There's a state-of-the-art horse racing stable back in Tur Messiah that we went to. And these are like world-class racing horses, like worth ridiculous amounts of money.
Yeah, you see the Jewish settlers, colonialists,
These are the
driving a
poor-
Subaru from
poor
1985.
Palestinians in the West Bank, yeah.
Right, and then we see them driving like Land Rovers and Range Rovers and just like the fanciest cars and the
We went
biggest
out-
mansions.
Did you ever see our video? We went
Yes.
out and counted the cars.
I was
we
really happy
counted
you made
all the
that
luxury
video.
cars we saw in like a couple of hour period. It was ridiculous that the Arabs have. I think Israel. Well, let's just talk about jihad being exported to the world, because I think this is important. And I know you guys are tired of hearing us advertise for the Israel summit. Just so you know, this is the last show you're going to see from Israel telling you guys to sign up, because we're all, God willing, flying to the States next week for the Israel summit. But right now, as of today, and I can't really give all the details, we're facing pushback. You guys know last year, the summit, which Ari was at, I was at, Jeremy unfortunately had a accident, ended up in the hospital at the last second. It's a miracle that you're alive, from what I understand. Was not able to be there, but the summit was almost canceled because the venue canceled our venue less than a week or just over a week before the summit. And amazingly, Dave Ramsey stepped in a couple days before, gave us his facility, double the number of people ended up coming. It was just an amazing miracle. It seems like we're living in times where now you cannot hold an Israel event or a Jewish event in America without pushback. And right now, 10 days before the second annual Israel Summit in Dallas, Texas, June 9th through 11th, we're facing pushback once again. It feels like it's gone to the next level after the murder that happened in Washington, D.C., the terrorist attack. And now people are afraid. Then the big headline in my mind is it safe for Jews and pro-Israel people to gather in America to voice their support of Israel anymore?
Do you want to share? Can you share the details?
In Dallas, Texas.
Can you share the details of what they're doing, or that's too sensitive right now?
Not all the details, but I'll just say that there's a possibility our venue could be lost again. There's a possibility, and I want to be clear to you guys, because if God wants this summit to happen, it will happen. And you know our team last year, we faced even worse situation, and the summit came off even better than we ever could imagine. The summit will happen. And I'm asking you guys to go either buy a ticket to come in person or buy a live stream ticket, because we really need that support right now. We're facing security costs that are 10, 20x what we ever imagined. And by the way, yes, it feels dangerous to gather in America, but we are 100% committed to making sure this is the most safe event in America. We're working with the highest levels of security. So you guys, I just want you to know, top of mind for us. But
I want to say one thing about this summit.
Yeah.
I would say the singular most frequent question I get from Christians around the world is, what can we do?
Yeah.
How can we stand with you? How can we support you? And this is the answer. This summit is a real answer to that question. It is a tremendous opportunity. It could be the last opportunity to really, really stand with Israel and the Jewish people, because I just saw an unbelievable clip between Douglas Murray and Jordan Peterson, one atheist, one Christian, and Douglas Murray was quoting the Bible. And he said, there's this beautiful quote for a verse in front of the United Nations, for they shall beat their swords into plowshares and not know war anymore. But Douglas Murray said, but read the verse before that. What does it say? For from Zion, the Torah shall come forth, and the word of God from Jerusalem. That is a prerequisite to real redemption coming into the world. From Zion, the Torah will come forth. We are leaving our homes in Judea, coming to America with a message to share. It's not a light decision for us to leave our homes in Judea. And if we do so, it means because there's a message in our hearts that needs to be shared with the world. And we're coming to share that message, and to come and to be there to receive that message, to encourage us, to support us. That is a big thing, especially with this new developments that people are threatening it. Because I'll tell you why. Let me just finish this. I'll tell you why. Because when it says that, when the prophet Zechariah and the other prophets, when they say, "V'nilvu goyim rabim al Hashem," and the righteous of the nations will attach themselves to the house of Israel on that day. What does it mean? How do you attach yourself to the house of Israel? It's not just something you could say with words or a belief in your heart. It actually, the only way to do it is through action. And that means that, think about a German that hid a Jew in their home in World War II, and they were caught, they'd end up in Auschwitz next to that Jew. Yeah. To attach yourself to the house of Israel now means they're in danger, they're being threatened, I'm going to go stand with them there. I'm going to go out of my way to go to that conference and to stand with those Jews and to stand with Israel and say, you're threatened, I
think it's amazing that we're now 600 plus days into a war. And right now, you and I both feel a little bit more anxious leaving Israel and going to America than we do staying in the front lines in Judea, because here we feel much safer with rockets falling from the Houthis and war all around us. And we're safer here than we feel in Dallas, and the venue might be canceled.
100%. Yeah. I would say the bottom line is it feels like even in Texas, people are scared to have a Jewish event, a pro-Israel event. 2 Jews were murdered in Washington, D.C. last week. And that's what we're facing right now. It's not, we're not, as of right now, we're not at the point where they're saying, no, we're going to shut your event down, although I'm sure there's people trying to do that. People are just scared. And like I said, there will be the highest security. God willing, this will be the safest event in America. But you guys do have to make a choice. Are you going to come and stand? And yes, it's dangerous to stand with Israel. Yes, it is a conscious, bold decision that you have to make on whether you're going to come stand with your Jewish brothers and sisters. But we're asking you guys, it's a big sacrifice for these guys to come from Judea, to leave their families, for all of us to come from Israel, all of the speakers from Israel, and to come to Dallas, Texas. And we're putting that out to you. The summit is facing pushback. We're working through it. There will be an amazing, amazing event in Dallas, Texas, June 9th, and we're asking you guys to be a part of it. If you can't do that, buy the live stream ticket. It will help us cover the costs and support the event.
I want you to know there's literally nobody I can think of that I would leave Israel for. If they called me and said, Pete Hegseth needs to meet you in the Pentagon, we're sending Air Force One, I'd be like, my kid finishes kindergarten at 3 p.m. I'm not going. The only people I would really go for is you guys, because of the extreme degree that you have put your necks out on the line for Israel and the Jewish people through thick and thin over the years in every way that we need it when we need it, which to me is like one of the greatest things. It's not your own agenda. It's always been where you're so connected with this is my experience of you guys, that you sense what we need and you say, do you need that, guys? And we say, that's exactly what we need. And I would go into more details, but it's probably too sensitive to do that. Yeah. So for me, if you're going to be like, all right, we really want you to come speak. And that's another thing I love about you guys, is that a lot of these conferences, they want to get the highest profile speakers, this Knesset member and this politician, and it makes it the most high pro. And politicians tend to just sort of be political and say things that are sort of inspiring, sort of this. You guys are not into that.
No, not
You're
at all.
Who do we want the world to hear speak?
The head of security from the Jordan Valley.
Just who am I? I'm nothing. I'm just a chicken farmer in Judea. I live on the Judean frontier. I'm not like, I don't have any titles or positions or anything, but you want the world to hear me. You want,
because
well,
Yishai Fleischer. You're a
Fleischer.
soldier in King David's army and from Israel. That's who the world needs to hear from.
So are you on some level. Okay, but I hear what you're saying. That's who you're inviting, people that are soldiers in the army, one way or another, whether they're wearing uniform or not. Yishai Fleischer is the spokesman for the Jewish community of Hebron, and he is a real character in and of himself. I think he is one of the, if not the greatest spokesman for Israel in the English language alive today. There's no question about it. And so he's coming to the conference, and there's going to be real truth and messages, almost, I think, like on a biblical sort of level. For from Zion, the Torah shall come forth. That's what we're doing going there to this conference.
I also feel like it's really important now because America's right is being splintered. And America's conservative movement, there are so many people that are following these woke, right, anti-Israel activists. And there's a chance now to rise up and make your presence heard, make your presence felt. And this is a way to really connect to the pulse of really what's happening on the front lines in Israel.
There you go, guys. If you're not inspired to get a ticket, I don't know what will. And again, this is your last chance. You guys aren't going to hear from us again until you either come to Dallas, Texas, or you see it on the live stream. So click that link in the description below. Speaking of Israel actually acting like a sovereign nation, Jeremy, do you want to talk about this? Israel set to deport Israeli Arab citizens who are terrorists for the first time ever.
It's a huge step forward. because the question is, what the terrorists get caught in Israel, they're put in a prison, and then eventually a hostage needs to be released, and they're released, and they're given, top-notch food, and they're given education. And now it's like, you're a terrorist, you're removed from the land. That should apply to anyone who not just commits acts of terror, but anyone that pressed the like button on Facebook supporting terrorism. Israel needs to be sovereign and take control over its country. And anyone that is a terrorist, supports terrorism, is a part of the jihad, needs to be removed from the land.
Okay, I hear what you're saying. There's something that always just makes me feel uncomfortable about that, because it's just we're not here in Israel after thousands of years returning home in order to get into the business of exporting darkness. We're here to shine a light. And that's why it brings me back to this deep belief that we need to uproot and decimate the concept of jihad, and not be exporting jihadists to different countries so they can be hacking away infidel in kindergartens and in playgrounds in other countries. And that's the great good that we've done. Okay, so we're a little bit safer here, deporting them, but let's actually not do that.
Well, let me tell
let's
you,
deal with it here.
So let's talk about Gaza and destroying the jihad and what that would look like, because there's real issues there. Because right now there's a tendency to separate between the Hamas and the Gazans, even though they've had 20 years now where they've been totally independent. The world has invested billions of dollars in the Gazan community, in building up what could be Singapore on the beach. And what they did was they built terror tunnels, bought weapons, and just planned their revenge against Israel. And so now let's say we knock out the Hamas leadership and Hamas is totally destroyed. What will happen? Well, here's the question. This is a quote from the former ambassador from America to Israel, David Friedman. It says, Gaza is not and has never been 40,000 Hamas terrorists and 2 million innocent civilians. In truth, the line is blurred to the point of being mostly invisible. And here's the proof. With Hamas all but decapitated, shouldn't there have emerged a peaceful civilian movement ready to bring about a better future for the people? That movement would have been received with enormous backing from Israel and the West. Where is that movement? Where are its leaders? Where are they? Because the Gazans for 20 years have been indoctrinated by Hamas television, Hamas mosques, Hamas schools. It's an entire society that is brainwashed in jihad. So when you say uproot the jihad, what does that actually look like?
That's exactly, I don't know how to say it in more articulate terms than I have. What it means is defeating the core tenets of their philosophy, of their ideology. By them, ultimately, we could say, I'm just going to say what it actually means, and let's not allow that voice of like, oh, come on, let's be realistic. Let's just for a moment understand. If we went onto the Temple Mount, which we conquered in a defensive war, and then we ran right over the Temple Mount and prayed at the outer retaining wall at the Western Wall, rather than rebuilding the temple, which we could have done, why didn't we do it then? Why did the nation of Israel have to go 40 years through the desert, not 3 weeks into the Holy Land? Because there was a journey we had to go through. But we're arriving at that destination on a spiritual level as a people. We've gone through what we need to go through. Ultimately, at the root, it means building the temple. Mm-hmm. Building the temple, going onto the Temple Mount and saying, this ultimate mosque of yours, the Dome of the Rock, which all of you pray with your backs towards when you're facing Mecca, which doesn't have any, 0 times does it say Jerusalem in the Quran, 700 times in the Bible. We don't need to get into who's who. We know what the truth is. It doesn't matter what the world says. They can't say anything worse about us or hate us anymore. Go and build the temple. That is the ultimate.
Is Hamas's, that was their stated public intention for starting the war on October 7th. They call it the Al-Aqsa flood because of their, they said it was because of the red cows, right? They came to Israel, but it's because they're trying to stop Israel from rebuilding the temple, trying to stop the house of prayer.
That's right. So if you're asking me what it actually means at the deepest core, for 1,000 hacking at the branches of evil, there's one striking at the root. That's the root. If we were to build the temple, then the entire jihad crumbles around us. And when they see the beauty and the light that the temple on the Mount Moriah will shine to the whole world, they will be helping us build it. We know they're great builders. They'll be helping us build it, and there will be such a degree of truth. I don't care if the world is scoffing and rolling their eyes and laughing and saying, what a religious fundamentalist they'll call me, who's dreaming of global peace and brotherhood. And they don't say that about the Hamas jihadists who are dreaming about the whole world being oppressed under the caliphate of Islam. That's not being said about them, only about me. Part of what this is all leading us to is having the Abrahamic integrity to be a real Hebrew, meaning to stand on what was a Hebrew, an Ivri. The whole world was worshiping idols, bowing down to rocks and stones and trees. And Abraham said, no, there's one transcendent God that created all of mankind and the whole universe. And they called him a fool, and they laughed at him, and they said, but the polls show and the whole world believes. And he said, I don't care what the world believes. I know the truth. And so we need to be willing to look at the whole world, who is laughing at us and scoffing at us and calling us genocidal racists, and say, it doesn't matter what you are saying. We know the truth, and we're going to do what we need to do. And that's what this is really about. Otherwise, it's whack-a-mole, and it's pragmatism, and it's missing the whole picture.
I mean, right now there are videos that are coming out of these Gazans that are storming into the warehouses where the Hamas have been storing the humanitarian aid, while the world is calling us genocide for starving the Gazans, where the Hamas are literally holding on to the food themselves.
They killed 5 Gazans, I think, over the trying to get to the aid.
So at some point, we really need to take that Ivri within us and be like, we don't care what the world says. The world saw October 7th. The world sees the terror tunnels. The world sees what could have been in Gaza. They chose war. They chose to create a society like that. And Israel just needs to do what Israel needs to do.
And we also need to restore our sense of internal righteous indignation and rage. All the world sees is one side of things, which is that Israel is going to the greatest, most suicidal, psychotic measures to bring back our kidnapped Jews that are in Gaza, to bring back their bodies, to even get a list of their welfare. We're willing to let go terrorists with blood on their hands. Meanwhile, Hamas and the Palestinian civilians are sending their children into areas that they know are getting bombed in order to broadcast to the world how their children are getting bombed. It's so antithetical that for us to continue making these arguments and it's just so alluring to make the case, because it's like, can't you see? Are you blind, world? Can't you see light and darkness, good and evil? How could you say that? But the minute we get lost in the conversation, that's what we're doing. We're lost in the conversation. We need to say, whoever has the eyes to see has the eyes to see. We're going to do what we need to do, and who we are is going to speak so much louder than what we say. And we need to have that clarity and that faith. And instead of caring what the world thinks, we should actually care what God thinks.
Well, I'll tell you, if we talk about the jihad, then the head of the snake is Iran. And Trump just now came out with statements saying, Israel, do not attack Iran. We are on the cusp of signing a piece of paper with Iran. And what that piece of paper is worth, check this out.
Back on Iran, did you warn Prime Minister Netanyahu against taking some sort of actions that could disrupt the talks there in a phone call last week?
Well, I'd like to be honest. Yes, I did. Next question, please.
Mr. President, just last on sanctions.
I did, yeah.
If Senate Republicans want to push
It's not a warning. I said I don't think it's appropriate.
What exactly did you tell him? Did you
I just said I don't think it's appropriate. We're having very good discussions with him, and I said I don't think it's appropriate right now. Because if we can settle it with a very strong document, very strong, with inspections and no trust. I don't trust anybody. I don't trust anybody. So no trust. I want it very strong where we can go in with inspectors, we can take whatever we want, we can blow up whatever we want, but nobody getting killed. We can blow up a lab, but nobody's going to be in the lab, as opposed to everybody being in the lab and blowing it up, right? 2 ways of doing it. Yeah, I told him this would be inappropriate to do right now because we're very close to a solution. Now, that could change at any moment, could change with a phone call. But right now, I think they want to make a deal, and if we can make a deal, save a lot of lives.
You know, all flights to Israel are canceled now except for El Al because the Houthis are shooting missiles, and one missile hit 350 meters away from Ben Gurion Airport. Just so people understand, Tehran is 30% closer than the Sana'a airport in Yemen.
Really?
Yeah,
I
much
didn't know
closer.
that.
And now Trump is saying, do not
wild.
attack Iran. We're going to have a very strong document, and we're going to be able to, I mean, it's like really we're putting our lives on the lines, waiting for the world, where if we're really here to put an end to jihad, then this is really a showdown between Israel and Iran.
It's crazy. Yeah. It's I don't know about you guys, but like Trump feels so much like a wild card, not to get into American politics or anything, but it's like so many good things happening, but at the same time, you just really don't know what's going to happen on the day we wake up on. Witkoff right now trying to force another ceasefire deal on Israel, probably to only release a few hostages in return for hundreds of terrorists from Israeli prisons, and 60, 70-day ceasefire, basically pulling the IDF out of Gaza right before they'd finish Hamas. So it really just feels like a wild card.
Yeah, the Bible teaches us that the hearts of leaders are like streams of water in God's hand, that he leads them to where he wants, which is why people that don't really honestly, truthfully integrate the truth of God's sovereignty over the world into their hearts. And when it comes down to it, they really believe that the leaders of the world are making the decisions that they're making. These people are riddled with anxiety, particularly those that campaigned for Trump, that believed in Trump. Now they're facing Wednesday, he was great. Thursday, not so much. Friday, he was terrible. But Shabbat, he was great again. Like, what is happening to put your faith in a leader like Trump, especially when you see that he's a human being? I believe he's a really good person at heart. I think that he's done really good things, but he has his weaknesses like we all do. Yeah. And one of them is offering him a $400 million plane. And he doesn't really believe that he doesn't understand, or he has not told himself the deepest truth, which is that bribes blind the eyes and obscure one's clarity on a situation. And if he doesn't see that accepting a $400 million plane, why is Qatar offering him that from the kindness of their hearts? They like his hair. What do they know what the truth is. He just can't say no to that. We have to operate from a place of faith and trust in God and true sovereignty, which can only come from within.
Well, every once in a while, in the chaos of this war and all the international scandals that are going on, there's bright lights that are shined in the darkness for us. And there was a woman named Selah Gaz, I'm sure you guys know this story, that was murdered just days ago. And she was pregnant on her way to giving birth to the hospital. She was killed and murdered, and they somehow were able to save her baby from her dead body. And she always wanted to name the baby's name Ravid, which is a really rare name in Israel. I don't know anyone named Ravid. And they said his second name was Chaim because that means life. So the baby was named Ravid Chaim. Eventually, it turned out that the commander of the unit that eliminated the terrorists that killed the mother of that baby, Ravid Chaim, is maybe the only other Israeli in Israel named Ravid Chaim. And when the family heard that story, it was like a light of somehow in this chaos, there are lights showing that there is a guiding hand.
Jeremy, there's even more to that story. And that is the owner of the Victory supermarket chain here in Israel he was so moved that he decided to adopt this family, the father and the rest of the children, and provide them with free groceries for life. And his father's name, who started the supermarket chain, is Chaim Ravid. So it's just speaking about God's hand being in everything.
Yeah, Ravid is a well-known last name, but for the first name to be Ravid Chaim, it's just so rare. And for that to be the soldier that eliminated the terrorists, it's really remarkable. But if we have to stand with faith, it's always good to look for the miracles that are right beneath the surface. And they're really everywhere, always allowing us the free will to choose right and left, right and wrong. But if you look for the miracles, they're all around us.
Yeah. Speaking of Trump, we do have something positive to talk about with Trump. And again, I do think, and again, this is not to get into politics. I'm not advocating for or against the American administration at all. But Trump does have the potential to do some amazing things. Literally, God's hand has been on a lot of things he has done in the past. There was a former hostage who was released from Gaza, and who gave an interview to CNN this week, and he had something pretty incredible to say about Trump. Listen to this.
Very scared of him. Yeah, they wanted
who?
The terrorists. were afraid of Trump.
Yeah, they wanted Kamala to be chosen, to be elected.
You talked politics with them?
Yeah. They wanted Kamala to be elected. When Trump became president, the way they treated us changed. For me, personally, this is what I
think
felt.
Because they anticipated that a deal would come soon.
Yeah.
And that's when they started giving you more food.
Exactly. More food, treated me better, stopped cursing me, stopped
Very
stealing.
interesting, fascinating to hear that literally hostages in tunnels inside Gaza started being treated differently when Trump was sworn into office. And also shows you the state of America. I think that the Hamas terrorists said they wanted Kamala Harris to win. So again, we always talk about how, this show, the Israel guys, I'm sure the Land of Israel Network, it's not about politics. We're not political. It's literally just about truth. It's about the Bible. It's about God's kingdom in the land of Israel being restored. And it's impossible for that not to be political. I think it's just amazing. Jeremy, you had something interesting about, because the attacker that murdered the two Jews in Washington, D.C. last week yelled "Free Palestine" and then murdered these two Israeli Jews. And Bibi Netanyahu came out afterwards and he said literally the term "Free Palestine" is equivalent to Heil Hitler from World War II.
Well, not only that, Netanyahu came out saying that, and also Marco Rubio came out saying that Free Palestine is really a code word for destroy Israel and destroy the Jews. And that's what people really need to understand, that when evil arises in the world, it attacks the Jew first. In Nazi Germany, they started lining up the Jews and systematically annihilating us. It got to Pearl Harbor because evil wants to dominate the world. And the same happens in Israel right now. When they say free Palestine, they're actually saying destroy the Jew, and it's just a matter of time until that arrives in America. But all of those movements that attacked the Jew first, it was always done in some sort of name of justice. The communists came out in the name of justice and social equality, and then they started to attack the Jews. There's a when I heard that the terrorists yelled "Free Palestine," I immediately realized that he probably wasn't a Muslim, because Muslims never say "Free Palestine." They say "Allah Akbar."
Yeah,
as soon as they say "Free Palestine," what that does is it indoctrinates the left, the woke, the progressive, the people that are actually seeking justice, and in the name of justice, actually pursuing evil.
It is interesting that the attacker turns out he was not Muslim. This you guys tell me what you think, because this is literally a brainstorm on the spot. Have we reached the place where now radical Islamic jihad is being exported to other people, other cultures, other religions? Because who knows? I mean, maybe this guy's been influenced by Islam or adopted some form. But like you said, he says "Free Palestine," not Allahu Akbar. Turns out he's not even Muslim.
Yeah, I think people tend to believe somewhere deep down when they see a jihad, a global jihad that is showing up in every country, in every city, all over the place, that if they just put on that keffiyeh and they march with them, that somehow they'll be safe, they'll be spared. And I think that there's a tremendous amount of fear and intimidation that is very deep down driving this global movement that is making the jihad and Free Palestine the end thing. It's so crazy. I just saw this video of Julian Assange at some event, and it's like he's walking down the catwalk, and now there's all this great love and respect for Julius Assange. Look at this video. So he's a very controversial figure that was frowned upon by many, that there were accusations of, I'm not weighing in on the validity or any, but there were tremendous accusations of rape and this and that. And, Now there's this strange new universal respect. He understands in the back of his mind that if he comes out and stands for Gaza and has this shirt and stands there like a catwalk model, modeling these names of these supposed children that were murdered in Gaza, which I don't believe at all, being that hundreds and hundreds of our soldiers are dying exactly to prevent that, he understands that all of a sudden he will not be in the spotlight and he will be vindicated and he will be looked upon positively. And this is part of the entire movement. They have really struck fear deep into the hearts of so much of the world. And I think that's a big part of what's motivating all of this.
Well, it's like you were talking about earlier. Basically, free Palestine has become the in thing. It's become the new fad because so many celebrities, now university graduates, it's like the new thing at your graduation to yell free Palestine, wear a keffiyeh, give a when you go, if you get chosen to give a speech, you make it all about the war in Gaza. It's crazy that people are so delusional and literally have no idea what they're even talking about, but they want to get on the bandwagon. They want to join the latest fad of, and obviously if it's hating Israel and hating the Jews, then it must be the thing to be a part of.
What's amazing is that we even see the terrorists themselves were really hoping that Kamala Harris was going to win. And we thought that once Trump was elected, the pendulum would shift in the other direction. And it seems as though the pro-Palestine movement is actually gaining speed, even among the right, even among conservatives. Julian, so like what is going on and what should our response be?
And I think talking about the right, that to me is so much more dangerous. I mean, the question is it even considered the right anymore when you have such deep hatred of the Jewish people and of Israel amongst the so-called conservatives? People that 3 years ago, 5 years ago, were like hardcore conservative commentators and broadcasters, many of them openly, outspokenly pro-Israel. Now 180-degree shift and vitriolic anti-Israel propaganda, direct Jew hatred. I mean, literally, I try not to listen to Candace Owens, but I pulled up her show the day after the two Jews were murdered in Washington, D.C., and I found the part where she'd mentioned the murder. She could not go 2 seconds even showing sympathy for them before she immediately turned it into an anti-Jew, anti-Israel propaganda thing. Two American citizens, they were American citizens. I think the girl was. She was from Kansas. Murdered in Washington, D.C. in a blatant terrorist attack. Could not spend 2 seconds even showing the slightest bit of empathy and sympathy for them.
The destiny of the Bible is going to unfold whether we like it or not. And the destiny of Israel is to stand alone. It's not to stand alone with the conservative movement, with the right, not the left. It's to stand alone with believers in God. And that's really what's going to be the final stand. Who are the people that really love Israel, believe in the Bible, and those believers are going to be the only ones standing.
Yeah, and I think that we can bring a lot of believers onto our team by making the right arguments, by making the deepest and truest arguments, not the superficial, surface level arguments, debating even what they're even talking about. Candace Owens, because here's the thing about Candace Owens and Tucker Carlson. I've been following them for years, and I really like Candace Owens. I do. And I've seen her speak so many times. I'm like, go girl. That's really profound and deep and true what you just shared about the Democratic Party and the blacks. And I refuse to believe that she is consciously and intentionally speaking falsehood in order to, I believe she really, really believes what she's saying, and she's not being presented with an authentic Torah Judean answer to her accusations. And the same with Tucker Carlson. And that's why I would say what my answer is, but I really want you to make a panel about this at the Israel Summit, talking about the new right-wing conservative party's hatred of Israel, and give us all an opportunity from Judea to share a truth that I think, if that's broadcast out there, it could actually change people like Candace Owens, who I think are actually coming from a place of truth and is just pirouetted down a rabbit hole of lies and conspiracy theories and theological errors that we really need to come and shine a light. Whether it changes her or not is not the point.
Right.
The point is that we need to at least articulate and speak that truth.
I mean, you were featured on a BBC documentary where this white British man was calling you a colonizing settler, an extremist settler, saying you don't belong in Judea. And this white British man, the grandchildren of the greatest colonialist empire in the world, is calling you, a Jew in Judea, a colonizer. It's like the world is, does he really believe that? It could be that he really believes that, but then there's also just like a line of Jew hatred. And so the Jew hatred blinds people. And I don't know, Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens, I don't look into their heart, but it's hard for me to believe that people can look at a Jew in Judea and say, you don't belong there. It's just not true.
And I think that's part of the language that we have to change, because the BBC guy, Louis Theroux, obviously he's calling you a radical colonializer, extremist settler, which, you might be proud of being called an extremist settler too. But has the BBC ever called you a Jew in Judea? And if we change, and nobody ever calls this Judea and Samaria, obviously we've changed the language somewhat, but we have to change the narrative. And like you were saying, we have to get our argument correct.
Yeah, well, we also need to change our narrative, not their narrative. We don't need to change their minds. We need to change our own minds. And that's it. Period. We need to stop thinking about how to get into the Palestinian textbooks and make it more Western. And that is not the right thinking. The right thinking is, because just think about your marriage. Think about your friendships. Think about your relationships. Go try to change anyone into anything. Yeah. Impossible. It's almost impossible to change your own with your own desire to overcome your bad eating habits or smoking or whatever it is, or your temper. It's so hard to even change yourself when you want to. Go try to change someone else when they don't want to be changed.
Right.
That's not the goal here. The goal is to look within and understand we really, truly change ourselves, we'll change the whole world.
When we talk about changing the narrative, I think that is the reason why we have the Bible. Because everyone always asks, like, why is God's wisdom given to us in a story form? I mean, the whole Bible, yes, there's laws, there's rituals, there are customs, there's wisdom. But all in all, it starts off with Adam and Eve, goes through Noah, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. They're in Egypt, they're out of Egypt, they come into Israel, they're destroying the temple, they're building. It's like the entire thing until the whole thing is a story. Why? Because that is the narrative that we all need to see ourselves. We all need to see ourselves as a part of the next chapter in that unfolding story. We are the next chapter. Jews have returned to Judea in the most unbelievable, impossible way promised in the Bible. All of that is just what, a coincidence? Here we are in Samaria, in the place where God promised the land of Israel to the Jewish people. It's the one promise in all of the Torah, and we are here. And every force against God, every force against the Bible is going to try to take us out of this land. That's why the victory of jihad is actually to go in, and the IDF just recently said they are right now not only destroying homes, they are there to take over and settle those parts of Gaza.
Did they say settle? Or did they say have security control?
Have control.
Okay,
Israeli
that's not
control.
the goal. Real Israeli control is not for us to control them. That literally in the optics of the world and in truth,
of course,
is actual occupation. We're not there to occupy anyone. We're there to have Jewish homes. That's one of the things I'm listening to, the accusations coming out of the conservative right. And one of the things I hear is about dual loyalty. Another thing is that Jews are so racist. Israelis are so racist. Another thing, a big conspiracy theory that I hear is that October 7th was actually allowed Israel, the government and the military, step back and let it happen to give a pretext for us to be able to go in and to take over Gaza.
Hamas,
not to destroy Hamas, but to take over Gaza and make it Israel. And I'm like, did they not know that Israel actually was in Gaza with Jewish homes, Jewish communities, Jewish farms and greenhouses and everything? And then we went into Gaza and uprooted all of our own people. The only true ethnic cleansing that has ever really happened in Israel that I can remember in my life is that ethnic cleansing of pulling Jews out of their homes and giving it to Gaza with all the greenhouses that they can make tens of millions, hundreds of millions of shekels, and they just burned it to the ground because that's what they do, because they destroy and they kill, and that's what they do. And now we need to create a pretext to go back in and take it back, and the pretext is 1,200 men, women, children murdered, butchered,
Hostages.
tortured. So when you look at this, and I'm like, I know the truth, and I know that Israel is the least racist country of the least racist people that there have ever been in world history, and they're calling us racists. I see what's happening here. Lies, conspiracy theories. This is an old playbook, and it's time for us to finally have a new answer to an old playbook. The final answer, which is not to even respond, just to be the nation that fears and trusts God with sovereignty and light to the world. And that will do so much more than getting lost and trying to set the record straight.
Well, it seems like the Jew hatred rises when Israel is losing. Jewish strength seems to be the answer to anti-Semitism.
That's a good point.
It just, as long as the Jews are strong and victorious, had we won the war in 6 days and not 600 days where we're still in this quagmire war that we don't know how to deal with giving them humanitarian aid, we need to win, settle the land, and reclaim it, and the anti-Semitism would go away because we're actually doing what we need to do.
Which is why you were half right. Jewish strength is great, but only when it's connected to a Jewish head. When it's actually with clarity of mission and purpose and thought, not just to go in and destroy all the Gazans' homes and destroy in order that they can't do it again, and to disable the Hamas leadership so they cannot ever be a militant force, but they can still be a governing force. That Jewish strength isn't going to do anything for us. It's just a waste of ammunition. It's a waste of explosives, and that's a big part of the reason that the world is not inspired when we're just going and dropping bombs and blowing up buildings and sending in our soldiers and dying. It needs to be connected to a deeper mission, which is the second part of what you said, declaring sovereignty.
Yeah, that's for sure. It seems though that we've lost a little bit of momentum. It seemed like President Trump was really backing us. He's like, all right, we got to reclaim Gaza. We're going to take it. It's going to be a part of America. That talk has almost all but gone. Now he's meeting with Qatar. He's meeting with Saudi Arabia. Witkoff is talking about a ceasefire and a long-term solution.
But it's not Trump's fault. It's our fault. Not a little bit, all of it. All of it is our fault. God sent us a leader that came in and said, Bibi, let's do this thing together. Let's make it happen. You want to go in together? Let's do it together. Green light. And Bibi's like, I'll go in and I'll do this. And he didn't have it. He doesn't have it in him to do what actually needs to be done with clarity and faith and trust. And not that he's a bad, people love to hate on Prime Minister Netanyahu. I'm not one of them. I think he's really doing the best that he can do for Israel and the Jewish people, but he's not the guy. He's not the guy. There's another someone that's waiting that will come into power in Israel and be a source of light to all of humanity. I believe that's what's up next, but it's not Netanyahu.
I want to read a couple of quotes. Hopefully this is some good news because, as we talked about earlier, Defense Minister Israel Katz, Bezalel Smotrich, Finance Minister, but also works in the Defense Ministry, announced 22 communities being established in Judea and Samaria this week, which is part of Jewish sovereignty, right? It's not full sovereignty, but it is the right step in the right direction. And the fact that this comes from Israel's defense minister, who's the second highest leader in the government, and the finance minister, who's also one of the top leaders in the government, to me is encouraging. But I want to read a couple of quotes from them on this topic. Defense Minister Israel Katz said, "This historic decision to establish 22 communities, new communities in Judea and Samaria, strengthens our hold on the land, anchors our historical right to the land of Israel, and delivers a crushing answer to Palestinian terrorism aimed at harming the settlements and weakening them." And then Bezalel Smotrich, who's the finance minister, but he's also in charge of the settlement affairs in Judea and Samaria, he said, "Through determined leadership and intense work, we have succeeded with God's help in achieving a deep strategic shift, returning the state of Israel to a path of building Zionism and vision. Settlement in our ancestral homeland is Israel's shield wall. Today, we took a giant step towards strengthening it. The next step, sovereignty." And then he concluded, he said, "We did not take a foreign land, but the inheritance of our forefathers." And so I think number one, it's encouraging to hear this coming from the top lead, the highest, most senior leaders in Israel, even if it's not coming from the prime minister. And two, I think this is a good step in changing the narrative. When Smotrich says, this is the inheritance of our forefathers. This is not occupation. We're not taking a foreign land. We're not declaring settlements inside Arab territory or inside the West Bank. This is the inheritance of our forefathers. I think that's the narrative that we have to grasp onto.
I wonder if we actually said that's the inheritance promised to us by God. I think that the Muslims would appreciate that, the Christians would appreciate that, in the world that even doesn't believe in God would say, whoa, those are the Jewish people. Those are the people of the book. At least they're speaking like the people that they know that they should be. And so instead of saying, well, it's our inheritance, we've been here, my grandfather was here. No. This goes way back thousands of years. It's the one place promised by God to a particular people, and that's why we're here. That's the real narrative.
I don't know if you heard the video of Prime Minister Netanyahu speaking to, I think it was the Prime Minister of Canada and France, and he was saying, listen to this. This is what he said.
These three leaders effectively said they want Hamas to remain in power. They want Israel to stand down and accept that Hamas's army of mass murderers will survive, rebuild, and repeat the October 7th massacre again and again and again, because that's what Hamas has vowed to do. I say to President Macron, Prime Minister Carney, and Prime Minister Starmer, when mass murderers, rapists, baby killers, and kidnappers thank you, you're on the wrong side of justice. You're on the wrong side of humanity, and you're on the wrong side of history.
So he's constantly saying, you're on the wrong side of history. He says, justice is with us. Truth is with us. And everybody, at least Jews in Judea, and so many around the world are watching him saying, please, just say it, please say, God is with us. Speak in the name of the God of Israel. That is what the world is waiting to hear, and it's just not coming from the Israeli government because it's not coming from within them. For the name of God to be evoked, it needs to be from the heart in a real way. I think otherwise God doesn't really want it. And so for me, that's what this is about. We're waiting for that leader that will come and say, in the name of God and truth, this is stand with us. Mi la Hashem Elai. Whoever is for God is with me, in the words of Moses, right? In the words of the Maccabees. If you're with God, stand with us. And whoever stands with us, that's what it is. Even if we're overwhelmingly outnumbered by the rest of the world, none of that will matter. It could be 300 of us left, like the army of Gideon, or just one. That doesn't matter because God will be with us.
Well, I think that really brings us to Shavuot, which is about to be in just days from now. And the question is why didn't we just go directly into Israel? Why did it take us 40 years in the desert wandering? Because in those years, we were being built into the people. That first generation of slaves needed to move on. The next generation needed to rise up. And I just read a study that secular Israelis now define themselves as more religious and more connected to God in 600 days since October 7th. So there is something that is happening within the heart of the people of Israel. There's something happening within the nation of Israel that we will soon be able to be the light that we need to be for the world and speak in the name of God. And so that is what Shavuot is about, the final revelation.
Which is why, a lot of people are teaching wisdom around the world. But in my old age, I've come to learn that there's some wisdom that you can't really internalize into your heart. It's something you need to experience. And I think there's a reason that there's such a radical differential between the Jews of Israel and the Jews of America today, is because the Jews here in the land have experienced the last 600 days. We're not viewing it on the news or hearing it from friends or watching it from abroad, from a distance. We're experiencing it, and they know the truth. They know we're going into Gaza, sacrificing our soldiers in order to save the lives of some theoretical individual Palestinians, innocent. We're doing everything we can, and nonetheless we're being called genocidal, and nonetheless we're being called racist. They know the lies, and they see it, and they experience it, and that realization is doing something in our hearts to realize something different is happening here. The laws that apply to every other nation, every other people, don't apply to us. Why? Because we are different. We're different. And how are we different? And the answer to that is waking up and sparking a part of their Jewish identity, their Jewish heritage, and their Jewish soul, which is in some ways what this whole thing is about.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. That's also a good point to end on. We're running out of time. And I think it's important. It feels like the leadership of Israel is getting closer, I think, to that willingness to align the nation of Israel and the Jewish people with God and with God's promises and his covenant that he made to Abraham. And speaking as a non-Israeli, a non-Jew here, consider myself a Christian Zionist living in the land. The only thing I could say is the opportunity and it's the opportunity for the world and the nations of the world to participate in that. It's not, the Jewish people versus the nations of the world, and, the Jewish people are special and the nations of the world are not special. No, this is God's promise. This is God's covenant with his people. And it's the invitation for the rest of the world to join into that promise. And that's where the blessing comes. And you guys have the opportunity to come and be a part of that in Dallas, Texas, or wherever you are in the world via the live stream. Israel Summit, June 9th through 11th. Get your tickets right now. Links in the description below. We'd love to see you guys there. We will not be back here in this studio for another 3 weeks. So this is the last you guys will see of the podcast, unless you're coming to Dallas or tuning in to the live stream. So we'll look forward to seeing you back in the Land of Israel very soon. Make sure to check out the Land of Israel Network, the Land of Israel Fellowship at thelandofisrael.com. And as always, guys, stop listening to the lies and propaganda and connect with the truth of what's happening in Israel. We'll be back very soon here at the Israel Guys.